Hey everyone, this is Sam with Summit 7. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today I have Fred Tschirgi from Broadmoor Consulting. Fred is a provisional assessor in the CMMC space, and Fred's going to cover some backup and recovery and talk about specific CMMC practice today. But Fred, if you don't mind, would you just introduce yourself and kind of talk about your background and experience for a little bit?
Absolutely. My name is Fred Tschirgi with Broadmoor Consulting, and I've been in the IT industry for a little over 20 years, starting with the United States Marine Corps at 8th Communications Battalion in Camp Lejeune. So this is a fun experience. Leaving the Marine Corps, I went into the corporate environment working for Atos, which is the third largest outsourcing company in the world. And then that led me to Verizon Wireless, where I spent quite a few years working on the IMS core and the Verizon Enterprise Cloud platform. So in that process, one of the passions I got into was the concept of application refactoring. And I started Broadmoor Consulting around that practice of taking applications, breaking them down, and removing the unneeded parts for both security reasons and for cloud applications. That led me into getting into the CMMC world about a year and a half ago when I met Reagan Edens, and he asked me to join the standards committee group and volunteer to help with that part of the CMMC environment. Because of that, and just playing around with what's going on, I've also become the number 66 provisional assessor, and my organization has become a certified third-party assessing organization.
Yeah, and obviously right now, C-through-PAOs awaiting DIBCAC and DCMA audits and preparing for to assess people. And so tell me a little bit about the provisional assessor class and kind of maybe just share a little wisdom from what you picked up and what's ahead for 2021 for the C-through-PAOs.
So the provisional assessor class was fun and exciting if you enjoy playing on the bleeding edge of stuff. You know, the class was 4 day long, and I will tell you right now, that is not adequate for the average person, which is why part of the requirements of being a provisional assessor is that as soon as the classes come out, we have 6 months to take those. So it's not we got a head start from anybody, I promise you. But from that, and going forward in 2021, the classes that are being created right now, I've seen little bits and pieces, and I know the people that are helping to develop those, they are going to be some truly amazing classes. And you know, the feedback they took from us and how well they received the feedback from those who took the provisional classes was just astonishing.
So let's talk about the recovery domain, specifically at level 3. You and I have talked about covering 3.139, and it reads, regularly performing complete, comprehensive, and resilient data backups as organizationally defined. So kind of key in on those words, complete, comprehensive, and resilient, and just share how organizations can prepare for assessments at level 3 in meeting this practice, and just give some context to recovery and CUI and what that looks like.
Understood. So with backup, you have to understand this is not where you start a conversation. Backup, if you look at the technology roadmap of becoming CMMC compliant, really is about phase 3. The first phase being an organization goes through, understands what CUI is, and properly identifies the flow of CUI both into an organization, where it's handled inside the organization, and if it leaves the organization, how that happens. That's phase 1. From that, you then have to go through and identify all the inventory, all the assets that are going to handle CUI, both personnel and physical devices. After you have that information, then you can go through and talk about backups. And it's important when an organization sits down and starts talking about backups to understand not everything is created equal. So an organization, the best way I like to describe how to handle this is once you have your inventory, take those inventories and break them down 1 through 100. At that point, go through and start identifying with an A, what are critical pieces of your infrastructure? Things that absolutely must be up in the event of an emergency. Things like firewalls. Firewalls should probably be like 1, 2, or 3.
That's right.
Along with multi-factor authentication should probably be around 1, 2, or 3. Put those as A. Then the things that are needed to perform your job as B, and then nice to haves as C. When that has been completed, you can then start creating the plans of identifying how you are going to perform backups and how often you should do the backups. So things like networking equipment, which don't change very often, you probably be okay with doing backups once on the weekend every week. Versus a server, you probably want to do incremental backups daily and then complete backups once a week. Now, that information that you are backing up and storing that has possession of CUI is the textbook definition of CUI at rest. So you must treat your backups with the same integrity that you do your working system.
Yeah, and I mean, you and I were talking before we started shooting this, and we were really just talking about CUI and how there's just a misidentification, or even there's just not a lot of clarity for the DIB right now as far as, you know, how to label and process, and so you can't back it up if you don't know what it is, right? Or it's going to be challenging at that. And so FCI is CMMC level 1, right? And then when you get into CUI, it's level 3, and then CTI as well. And so, yeah, I mean, that's extremely helpful. And I know organizations are going to be looking for different solutions, right? Because to perform those backups, it's going to take a lot of work. Like you said, if you have a server, I think you mentioned you would be performing a backup every day, right? Right. And so that's probably a lot of manpower, or manpower along with software. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
So one of the key factors of this particular practice is to automate as much as humanly possible. And these can be done, servers can be done as part of processes within other servers. And then things like networking can be done with the use of scripts.
Yeah, I mean, Fred, I know if someone needs clarity on this, I know they can obviously reach out to you. They can reach out to Summit 7. Backup is a huge part of CMMC, and Summit 7's we've got some content around that to kind of help you clarify that. But at any rate, Fred, this has been super helpful. I know for me, and I know contractors watching this will hopefully start establishing a framework, right, for how to address backup, and as we go along. I know we'll be on the lookout for that certification from the AB for the C-through PAOs, and they can reach out to Broadmoor Consulting. And if you haven't started reaching out to C-through PAOs to get ready for assessments, we would encourage you to do so.
So the parts where companies are struggling with backups and actually performing them. One of the things that when an organization is doing backups, they need to understand is, as an assessor, when I come in, I'm looking for these backup procedures. I'm really looking for two primary things. And that is, one, that an organization has really sat down and methodically thought about what they are going to be backing up and where they're going to be putting that information. Two, that those backups are being done at a regular interval. And then there's a third one, that the backups are being done by deltas. For example, if you are doing an upgrade to a piece of equipment, I would expect that a backup is done as part of your pre-checks as well as part of your post-checks. And post-checks is a very important one because people tend to forget to go back and check later. And you don't want to find out 6 months from now that a change control 6 months ago stopped this machine from backing up.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's a great addition. And that, it kind of got me thinking. That last word in the technical practice is resilient. So I think you would agree. Each assessor or each C3PO might define that differently, right? And so, do you want to spend just a couple minutes defining what resilient is in your mind?
So resilient to me comes to the point of a backup is only useful if it can be restored. So if you are backing up all of your equipment to a location that is on site with all your equipment, and a disaster happens, you have just lost your backup. So it is important that when you're doing your backups, to have them put into a place that is safe in the event of an emergency. The other part of that is to actually go through and restore your backups on a regular basis to ensure they work. One of the worst experiences in life that a IT department can have is to have a failure, go to do a backup, and realize that a file is corrupt or something was missed in the process, and this is no longer a valid backup. So those to me are the resilient parts of this. One of the most important things I can say right now is for those who are getting ready to go the path of CMMC, do not be afraid to reach out to a consultant for a very short period of time. If you watch a lot of these videos, a lot of these things going on, people love talking about the organizations that are already doing their readiness review and ready to run out the door as soon as we're allowed to. When in reality, that's a very small subset of clients out there right now. The majority of the clients that we have right now are organizations that need help understanding maybe 2 or 3 practices out of the whole list that are there. Majority of them they're okay with, but 2 or 3, they just need an expert to come in and walk them through what this really means. And an hour on the phone or a day or 2 in person to help clarify what these practices are is the best thing that any organization can have, especially when at this point of the game, you should really be working on your 2 to 3 year roadmap to become compliant, not just diving deep into practices and trying to figure it out.
Awesome. Well, Fred, again, thank you so much. I know that's been super helpful, and please be on the lookout, everybody, for more videos in this series.